The weather forecasters predicted this dead on. The strong gusts pushed cats to the other side of the street. Typically visiting yachtsmen coming to Foy grab a mid-river dock, but we avoided it because of the impending storms. Looks like a really good call, as dock life would have been very bumpy.
Oh, Cyclops, she's looking good. So safely tucked in. Thankful that large motorboat creating a little bit of a breakwater for us. And behind, I think that's where they load the China clay. Bleak weather today as the predicted gale is coming through, but look what you can see from the marina. Some cows. Gail said all she wanted in life was to have a marina view of cows. Maybe she meant the island that's famous for yachting, not the enamel.
The inclement weather may have stopped us from sailing, but it did not stop us from exploring. We hopped on the chain ferry to cross from our side of the river to the other side of the river. During the short trip across the river, I wondered how many chain ferry captains have ever gotten lost. When traveling, I do enjoy marveling at amazing homes. This one looks rather blustery today.
Come join me for something new. We're gonna work on the fuel system for a bit. You can see right now, after having dinghied around while we were at anchor, I need to charge the battery for the dinghy. There's the charger, and it goes straight into an outlet on the 230 system here in the technical room. There are 2 fuel tanks. Now, for the last 2 years, I've not used tank 2, and the thought was, why maintain 2 tanks? It's about time, though, that I test tank 2. Okay, every tank on a boat has a outie and an innie. So it's taking fuel out of the tank to run the engine. The engine always takes more than it needs, and it returns fuel to the engine. Right here is for tank 2, and it's the outie, and you know that because it's going to the fuel filter. And then if you look here, this guy's coming back from the engine room, and that goes in here, and that's the return. This allows air to come out of the tank while you're filling, and this is the fuel filler. Open up this valve, open up the valve for the return, close both on tank 1, and try to start the engine. So the 2 for tank 2 are open, and the 2 for tank 1 are closed. Now, there's going to be no fuel in the fuel line from tank 2 to the engine, so before I start, I'm going to use my little baster to manually pump some fuel to the engine so it doesn't have a tough time starting. So this hand pump sucks fuel from the tanks straight into the fuel pump itself. And if I didn't have this big alternator, you could probably use this fuel pump, but it's incapacitated due to the alternator. So this is the solution JPK came up with. Well, success. It started on the first try, no effort at all. We have 2 tanks of fuel now.
The English have a reputation for being a bit quirky, and these men continue the tradition. This is a steam-powered motorboat, probably has a top speed of 3 knots, but they are enjoying their day. To continue on the theme of quirky watercraft, this collection of rowers are in costume. It is a memorial service for one of their fellow rowers.
The boat has a diesel heater, and the way that works is it takes diesel that you'd usually use to propel the boat, and it brings it to a heater located in the aft locker. It lights that diesel on fire, making warmth, has a big fan, and this is the control head unit. And right now, what's going on? It is 7 minutes left in my cycle. It's producing heat, and the red ring of fire means you got heat. Now, the boat has a couple of ducts, and here's one duct right by the nav station. There's one in the quarter berth and one in the V berth. It has been a little quirky ever since I got the boat. Not sure if that's user error, install problem, or whatever, but now I'm testing and it's working perfectly, and boy, it is making the boat toasty. Like all luxuries, they do come with a cost, and the heater, when it's running, consumes about 4.2 amps. What is that like? Well, that's similar to one big chart plotter. It's something interesting to have at the end of your driveway. A huge navigation mark. Yep. Well, we're gonna take the ferry to cross the river. We are walking on the far side, and we're looking out onto Foy itself. Is there a bull in this field? We are headed to Botanic, but first we're gonna go to Pont to walk across a bridge. We have reached the bridge. Not the world's biggest bridge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps.
Sir Arthur was a very famous poet who lived in Foy. I'm currently reading a book of his called Troy Town, and it takes place in what is sort of Foy.
That gray Dyneema line that's just dangling off the bow, it comes from the sprit, and it's very important when the sprit's extended, it gives it its support. But on my last passage, somebody called me on the radio to say, hey, you got a dangling line. So I'm going to try to use some bungee and fix it. Let's go see.
One of my favorite parts of this boat, you can just very easily look forward. It's a monohull, but and the deck isn't that high, so it doesn't end up looking like a home attached on a sailboat, but you get just great views. You can look out this way, and then you can spin around and look out the stern.
There she is, just hanging out in her slip, ready to go on a trip to Falmouth tomorrow.